So then I will continue since no clarification, no questions. And these are the things last we discussed the last week. And so I asked you to complete this table. I hope you have done. So the equilibrium changes, dynamic nature we discussed, and what happened, how external shock introduced, or maybe the policy shock introduced to the market. And so we did this also. So the elasticity, this one we will take later on. Now from here, so we are going to discuss today and the intervention to the market, the mechanism. There are many ways, but we take only these four type of intervention. But you must know the other ways. And here the purpose is to interpretation, how the intervention happened to the market and the kind of impact and policy interventions we will discuss. And this is the intervention mean the government intervention to the market, and so their intervention mean the government impose price changes or something. It's a you can't change in the market mechanism. You have to wait and go with it. Previously, what we discussed, the market system, it's happened automatically settle down to the equilibrium point. And so this is the one of the questions I gave last year, and give a case like that. This is also maybe the quite same way, and here the USA market introduced tariff release for farmers, and then using the demand and supply analysis and interpret and so that is the basic thing in the exam. So the last week also, I think I quickly look at this one and the aggregate demand and aggregate supply impact in case of government increase, for instance, tax. So in this case, the tax cut and how it's affect to the economy, and also in terms of aggregate demand and aggregate supply, the different sectors of the economy. Looking at the different analyses, we can see how is positive effect when the tax cut, for instance, 1% to the US economy time period. And also last week, I share with you one of the article I have written, and in case of Sri Lanka, what happened, and all the other countries also. I hope you have read it. If not, please let me know, then I will resend it. So that is understanding very important. And also through crowding out effect, also you can see in case of introduce the tax, and crowding out mean that when the government collect money in terms of tax, if the private sector investment opportunities lost, their cost is higher than what the government collect and introduce thing. Because the one thing in the overall, all the world, we know that private investment is efficient than the public investment, different reasons and different decrease in different countries. In Sri Lanka, of course, there are many articles, research has done the public sector inefficiency. In that case, it's much more bigger than this impact on Sri Lankan economy. And with that, I will start with the price flow. So the price flow mean or we call the minimum price also, in other words. The government introduced the market price, so the price above the market price, and reasons basically to support the producers, as you all know, that is the key reason. And we will see what happened when the government introduce kind of a price floor to the market. Now, this example, the price floor become now 7, in the market price is 6. The obviously the intermediate things what happened, sorry, immediate thing what happened, the market demand dropped down, in this case up to 100, and the market supply increased because the producers encouraged such a decision. In that case, someone may say a good sign, but that next thing is happen surplus. Immediately happen in the market, the surplus. So with the surplus, now obvious question is, so what the government can do with this surplus, or what the market can do this surplus? Any ideas from you? Anyone? Anyone has any opinion? If create a surplus such a way, what happened in the market? What can you do with the surplus? So it's been no one may be
So,
listening. Yeah.
so we can export the surplus?
Again, what?
Export the surplus?
Okay, what you said, the one, the opinion is the export. The other, any other? Sundari? For those who are not respond, I will remove from the uh, call today. And so if Sanduni not here, then I'm going to remove. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? And Uttara?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. You are at least there. What's your response?
I think, sir, also we can export and
That's what you say, also export, right?
yes, sir. I think if there are any surplus, we can use it for another production for that surplus.
Okay. That's your idea. Utpala Navaratna? Is there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's your idea? Okay, that's fine. Jatrika Sirimal.
So we can make any value-added product or any other things by using
Okay.
economic surplus, or and use export in market, and also we can use something make into the donation things, and or two things, and if we think that we product the additional food like surplus foods or anything, then we can use that donation purpose or anything, and another value added products or exporting things, and I think so.
Chaturga?
The government can purchase this surplus and maintain a stock.
Okay. Now, yeah. So several answers I got it. And, I start with the last one, not to see if the government. I think you can see again the slide. And now let's say obviously things happen right now also, and this surplus, let's say paddy in case of. So if we set the price like that, now in this, for example, this case, the surplus value is 7 multiply 100 is 700 million. value, and in terms of amount, 100 million kilos. And now the surplus, now like you say, stock, and its next season also coming. So then this season now, let's say the first season, we start with right now, second season also less or more coming the surplus because most probably more, and because the farmers encourage and they produce more. So they continuously accumulate surplus what in the government does and come and stop your house also, what to do. Now, and that's the problem with rational kind of policy. So you can say easily the government buy and stock somewhere, but how long it continues. Now you see, recently the government announced that the government give this kind of rice 20 kilos per public servant as a leasing base. And that's one of the main reason because they last year they bought surplus and they keep stock and the new this season come they can't remove them. They try to do that to keep the market, so that is the behind policies there, and ultimately reducing price, and they try to do that. The other thing also kind of surplus, if you stock can quality of the product also not improving, and some cases like kind of rice and food items, and their nutrition value also drop. For instance, let's say most cases the best nutrition value in case of rice you can get the 6 month. After 6 months, maybe sometime back, what the government did to distribute among the Samurdhi beneficiaries. So suppose they are the laborers in the market, then the Samurdhi beneficiaries, the laborers and the labor nutrition value will drop down, mean the labor productivity increase and the negatively affect the economy. It is not the one way, and there are so many ways in the sense because they distribute without cost, and the cost go to the government, and the government cost go to the again the taxpayers, and so you can see this kind of policy how destroy the economy, destroy the society. So the other policy option one mentioned that the export. Now, let's say this is the even the we can compete with the world market. If it is the market price originally the world market price, then the who buy and the which country buy this our control price in higher price in that's another obvious question. Of course, in terms of world market price, we know many product in Sri Lankan case, the world market price below our equilibrium price, also domestic price. In this case, even they don't buy from Sri Lanka in the world, our domestic price, with the introduce of the surplus, how they buy. For instance, in that case, if a government buy and export, again they lost this amount to the taxpayers. Government has to collect taxpayers. In that case, the obvious answer is other countries they enjoy our product. We earn only revenue this amount and the other additional cost to the taxpayer. So, for example, India buy as exporter, Indian citizens enjoy, but we are the one who suffer paying higher tax. So you can see that kind of irrational, this kind of policies. So when you make in the master level, think of a kind of an innovative and rational policy. For kind of policies, I don't give full marks because those are just to like parrots, what you say in the conventional way, the policies. It may harm to the economic several way that what we have experienced all the time. Of course, the being Sri Lankan, no exposure to other countries' policies and things, you may definitely give this kind of answer, but that answers always cost to the economy and society. But the one answer, like maybe quite innovative, what you said, using the surplus and for value creation. For that, we need some policies to improve the value creation. And this case, government has to introduce this kind of price floor policies in terms of looking at the value creation industries, not just for poverty alleviation, poverty purpose. So that is the another thing also. When you make this kind of policy discussion, has to be rational, have to be innovative. Otherwise, I don't give marks. So Now, with this, what you notice that we create a surplus. Surplus, what to do? The policymakers, when they introduce the price flow, has to think of, and the the surplus again, not the one spot surplus, they continuously come in whatever the product happen, because just not introduce kind of price flow one spot. And we see the amount of surplus 700 billion million. So that is the thing. Now, what we are going to do this analysis using the microeconomics textbook version person. They are do the analysis like we discussed before, using the producer surplus and consumer surplus concept. Now, the microeconomics textbook, they look at what happened to this, the entire, both the surplus after introduce the price flow. Now here the original, you can see the producer surplus in this area and the consumer surplus area you can see. Now when you introduce the price flow, the above, let's say original market price is $8, just some hypothetical value, and the original the equilibrium output 100 million units. And let's say the government introduced the price flow, $10 price flow. That is the situation right now. You can see the, here I'll say here 3. Here what we say the maximum price 12, just to some assumption. Now with this, you can see the original, the producer surplus 8 minus 3 is 5, 5 times 100, 100 divided by 2 is $50 million. Original, the producer surplus. Now, original consumer surplus, you can see the yellow area, this difference is 4 here, 4 times 100 and 200. So here 250, sorry. $250 producer surplus. The consumer surplus, $200. The original. Which means the total surplus or total welfare in my definition, $450, $450 million total. Now let's see what happened with the introduction of the price flow. Now what happened here is the 10 and the output, let's say, drop into like 70 demand. And with that, you can see the consumer surplus become only this area. Now consumer surplus only this area because the consumer has to pay $10, and then we can measure 270 multiply the $70 consumer surplus after price flow, $70 million or $70 million. So previously 200, now 130 lost to the consumer. Now producer surplus, in this case, the after price flow, you can measure this entire area, the orange color area. So the amount you can measure here, let's say here 7 or 6, sorry, 7, 4 times 7, 140 plus 3 210. Altogether, producer surplus become 350. 350 plus 70 total social welfare now become after price flow 420. Now see the previously 450 social welfare now social welfare become 420. The gap here we $30 million lost to the society, which area, this area that what we call here dead weight loss. Dead weight loss means loss to the entire society. See, though the producers better off little, in the producer surplus increase, it cost to the consumer and little cost producer, but they improve that depend on the elasticity anyway. Ultimately, the entire society lost. In this case, the hypothetically, if you measure around $30 million loss, that's what we call dead weight loss. Dead weight loss. So that's how the textbook, microeconomics textbook, explain the effect of price flow using this concept textbook. Sorry, dead weight loss. And now the producers may be better off in, and consumers become worse off. Now in Sri Lanka, it's assumed that it's happened the semi-sector. And in case of a semi-sector, this kind of a situation, and the many items are imported, and this case, though producer surplus improve, that's part of the surplus go to the other countries also. Now that is also we have to think of because we are mainly import dependent producers. And to go beyond little textbook version, the textbook version, this dead weight only take into account because the microeconomics, neoclassical economics basically believe the full employment. Now, originally the produce this industry 100 million. Now, because of price flow, now required and produce 70 million. With that, what happened? Obviously, this 30 million, if the surplus not come in and only produce in terms of what demand right now, because even the surplus thing, they can't do that, and you can see many surplus destroyed. This is not now coming to the market ultimately, and the producers who produce in this range and the input providers in this range, they lost their job. So the value here you can calculate so much, even the more than dead weight loss, about let's say $100 million loss. So this $100 million loss is not simple thing because they lost their job also. Laborers, entrepreneurs, and other input providers. Bank also lost job, and this trickle down, trickle effect, and also link-in effect to other industries is higher than this just to count 100 million. So when they lost job, and their family members also suffer because the family depend on the sometime one person's earning, and that's happened. So that social unrest created. So why neoclassical economics analysis don't take this area since they assume full employment. The full employment case is a lost job, those those who work in this area or entrepreneurs, they can find jobs in other sector and they can start jobs, businesses in other sector and do that. But that is not the realistic assumption, because the one who work in, for instance, as a farmer, just lost job tomorrow can go to a bank and be a banker. In our system, maybe they believe that they can be a lecturer, but not banker, not a doctor, is kind of thing. And so there is another thing also, even country with the full employment, assume that nowhere, to get the skills in other sector, to get the uh, knowledge to other sector is take time. So this transition period in our system in the social protection policy is silent. And the transition, they are, get another skill period and develop skill, our social protection also silent, no skill development purpose, those who lost kind of job. And those who introduce the price floor, policymakers, they don't think of that kind of areas also. That is the, so you can see this area is worse than the originally calculated weight loss cost. And if you look at the economic, macroeconomic point of view, let's say this happened to the even one sector, original before price flow, including that sector, if you count the production possibility frontier and where you get the GDP, the reducing this 30 million production, definitely, let's say, if this sector, it is the y-axis, rise, and the production possibility frontier move or shift this way. So in that way, next year when you count GDP, definitely GDP reduce, and because this production drop to there, and this production linked to the other industries also, in that case, this side also little shift happen and the production possibility frontier. Ultimately, the original social welfare level set like this, the social welfare also drop the economy in that way. You can see how the bad this kind of price flow. But if use the price flow in case of only close-minded way, the policymakers. But this kind of policies and the price flow can be used to address the market failure cases. In that way, you try to reduce the market failure, is not harm to the economy and not harm to the society. So that you have to understand. Now here, the next one, we will look at in case of price ceiling. The price ceiling is the government decide the price below the market price, like here. So in other words, what we call maximum price. Here, let's say $6, $4 right now, maximum price. Now there, you can see what happened quickly. Supply reduced because the price goes down and the supply discouraged, supply dropped to 100 million and the demand increased. So they are create a shortage. They are create a shortage. So then the case of price ceiling, that's what happened. First, we will look at in case of price ceiling, shortage happened, then what happened in the market. I will just want to check with you the ideas. And now, in case of price ceiling, the market shortage happened. Then what happened in the market? Anyone? Okay.
So
Yeah.
sometimes there's the creation of black markets where despite
Okay.
the maximum price, these goods are being sold at exorbitantly higher prices than the earlier price even. So
Okay. Good. And anyone else? PU Midas?
Sir, I didn't get the question correctly. My connection was loose. Can you repeat me, please?
Yeah, what we were discussing, the price ceiling. Price ceiling case is create a market shortage. With the market shortage, what happened next? Vijay? Yeah. Samaravira? Then, yeah, you want to answer?
Yes, sir. So maybe we will have to look at ways of rationing the products because we don't have enough to supply to everyone. Maybe we'll have to have something like a first come, first serve way or another way to ration whatever the supply that we have to address the shortage.
Can you explain a little bit? That's a new thing.
I was thinking because there's a shortage, we will have to look at ways of redistributing whatever that we have so far, like to have a rationing or a coupon system
But
to
a
make sure
shortage
that,
happened, not the surplus.
yeah, I'm like when I'm telling like because there's a shortage, we don't have enough. Maybe we will have to think of a way to give it to people who really need it and not let this black market prices take up the market.
How do you do that? What's the instrument, what strategies you can use there?
Oh, I didn't think that far.
Yeah. Any other? Yeah, few minutes.
Sellers realized that demand was high, then quickly the price was high and producers supply more, but consumer buy less and stop buying.
No, this is not a surplus. This is a shortage.
Yes, consumer compete to buy limited goods. Then sellers realize demand is high.
No,
Then
consumers in price ceiling mean the price set below the market price. But then more consumers line up to buy because their willingness to pay depend and low income people and low willingness to pay people also buy. Then the shortage happen. With the shortage in the market, no enough items. Then how can happen the supply increase?
I didn't get that one part.
So like the QR codes, the supply, the demand can be curtailed and restrictions can be introduced for the
So what,
consumer.
what can you introduce?
Like in polls, the QR code and then the
Okay.
demand is curtailed, sir. And even in goods we see like maximum 3 kg or 3 packets are given per person when we buy during milk powder crisis and those times also, sir.
Then what happened to those, the price is low, then those who needed those items?
Yes, sir, that problem is, and the black market is also created.
So is that is a good solution?
No, sir.
Purnika?
Yes, so sometimes the producers also reduce the quality of the product and he replacing the production because of the low profit. I think also that to distribute the shortage amount that we can use coupons and just like QR code like that.
Anyone else ideas? Utpala?
Sir,
So price shortage, it happened price shortage because when price is reduction, the demand of the quantity demand of consumer will be increased and the supply, the quantity of supply is reduced. Therefore, it
That what
happened.
exactly happened. Then what happens? Next what happened? What to do? What like you are a policy maker? What you can do that in case? What you can do? Let's say, first forget about it. You introduce this kind of a necessary good rice or something, and to support the consumers, and then
government can increase the supply. That means government can import and distribute for the goods. If there is as examples, if there is a rice shortage, government can give subsidies. Sir, sir.
Utpala, I think he logged out.
Ah, right, okay.
sorry, I lost my connection. Then they can come back. Yeah, Utpala, you try to say something.
Sir, government can give subsidies like that
Subsidies to whom?
to suppliers, or government can
Okay.
import product and distribute to avoid the shortage, and also government can give
Why only
subsidies to the suppliers.
government has to do this? And for example, let's say the government gives subsidies. Where government get this money to give subsidies? You don't worry about it because you don't pay tax for it. Maybe some other countries are ready to give those subsidies. And why you say that the government buy, and where the money government get to buy those from import? Again, tax. In case like a price ceiling, anyone tell me why the government should introduce price ceiling? Jesse? Oh, there.
Protect the consumers.
Is the real reason, right? That's the problem. I always think of. Any other? Dilshan?
If there's a increase in the price without any justification, like unfair situation.
Yeah, that is the two thing we have to be clear, or we have to
Control
be.
inflation.
Sorry?
Control inflation.
Okay. Yeah, what I try to say, it's an economics. We have to think, no, that your thinking pattern, what we can see, what you practice, what you hold your lifetime, what you see. But from the beginning, we discussed the government intervention required, the market failure happened. But those, whatever you all mention, is not solution to the market failure. A solution to the so-called poverty, but that is also a short-term solution. In that way, long-term and the continuous poverty is equivalent, because the poverty and those people who discourage to work can this happen. But that's your thinking pattern. But you have to think of in terms of government intervention, market failure. If you think of that line, maybe when I mentioned that, we will be angry with me also, because they then say to support consumers and then poor people be happy. That's what definitely things come to your mind, because that's what you experience, your pattern, your education, your culture. But that you don't understand, that kind of thinking, that kind of policies continuously poverty increase. Because those people who get that way never think of work, never think of improve and get in this way, and someone try to reduce that one, they come to the stage, they come to the street and picketing. So that's the what we experience. But look at the in terms of market failure, particularly industries, is like a, let's say, sunset industries. It's like not much impact on the, even the negative impact on economic other sectors, or even has a kind of a high external negative externalities. These industries introducing price ceiling and the supplier discourage, and this happen. Thing. And also, let's say we are very competitive globally, and some industries, domestic cost of production very high, different reasons, and we can import at low price because we are living the global economy. And those industries, because no future global competitiveness, we have to get rid of. Introducing this kind of, then supplier discourage, supplier continuously think of new areas, and because they are entrepreneurs and they think of. In that case, they may think of kind of develop different kind of substitute product, or they think of develop different kind of way and improve their productivity and reduce their cost of production in that way. If that line, if you think, the economy will develop. But you always think that I can't blame on you, because that you up to now you learn, and your culture, your blood and your education, everything there. You always come to mind those kind of answers. And let's say after this introduce those consumers who need additional, then as a policymakers, you have to think different ways to handle. Rather, it depends on the particular reasons, and maybe introduce, or same time introduce different kind of industries which can produce substitute to that, maybe more nutrition value kind of thing. Then people go that. So that kind of answers I need to this kind of questions. Unfortunately, though I mentioned here when I read the answer script, I don't get it. That's the unfortunate situation. The answer script always you say that the consumer support to the consumers, and because the consumers are poor and the poor consumers getting that, and this kind of answers I get. So still, even I like economics, you don't understand that continuously increase the poverty, not decrease the poverty. So the short term and the feeling feel bad, but the long term everybody benefit this kind of a innovative and suitable policies linked to the economic development, which include social protection policies. Now, what we discuss here, if we look at the textbook way, we introduced the price ceiling, and it's obviously someone try to say create a, what we call black market price, the black market price. Now here, let's say put some numbers here. Let's say here 100, here 70. This market price, let's say 8. Price ceiling price, let's say 1. And with that, with the 7, we can say here $10. Here say 15. Now let's say that is, since the people who 100 people at the equilibrium level, that is the socially acceptable level of production. And this 30,000 or 30 million people right now waiting to get, let's say, very simple way. You go to the passport office now. You go to some hospital. To get the ticket, you have to wait a queue maybe some cases you come to the queue early morning, 2 o'clock. Here, 100 people in the queue. Now, when the queue start and going on, you realize that only 70 people get it. Other 30 people, they are coming early morning, they can't go to work, and they come with some others also, because early morning and things also, they know that's cost also involved. Now, if you belong to this range, what do you do basically? Basically, what you try to do, that exactly happened, this court system or petrol, oil things and things last few years, whatever thing happened, you try to, now in case of the oil case, what will happen, maybe you can ask somebody to give higher amount money and to ship this place and try to do that also happen. Or maybe you can ask to friend come early and sit that can give the help. Or maybe you approach someone in the office that come through some middleman, maybe you try to give higher price and get it that than $7. That's from your point of view, it's better because to come here to spend like another $50. Your transport, your opportunity cost, and your friends or your family members or relatives opportunity cost about $50 going and coming another day, 100 become, rather than another 50 spend, giving additional some amount and maybe even 3 within this 50, any amount you're willing to offer. So with that, you try to get and go home. That's what we call black market price, and people blaming the corruption. So the government always, now you can see the current government blaming this kind of corruption. At the same time, government try to introduce so many circulars and make this kind of hard to people. Now in that case, the only people suffer because the people even can't use these circulars, and the government officers even reluctant to support the others, and nothing will happen. So ultimately the economy slow down. So that exactly happened because of the circular economy, circular government. I say the circular government because the government right now only doing the issuing circular, this kind of circular. Price ceiling, price floor, whatever other thing also. You see, even avoid the black market. Now, if we look at the country point of view, government has to employ some forces, including police and armies, to look after them. Whether some people approach to make the black market, even the lawyers, court and things also, that also cost to the economy. That also cost to the economy because it does not improve the productivity, production in that way. Ignore making new production. So you can see that way, that obviously you can see the economy, though now the World Bank say we reach to the middle income level, that not happen because those things, no production improve. Even within the country, you can see that. The World Bank says because the IMF support and the IMF team, they want to, otherwise they are failure. And the IMF getting money, you can see the money level in terms of country improve, but the people suffer. That is, in terms of that, we can't see any middle income reach. So World Bank and IMF one group, and they work together. Anyway, that's a different discussion and different thing. Now, in this case, let's say the market create a black market price in this particular example up to $10. And the worst case is that people, their mind, the supplier side officers or those who work or supply side people, and the demand side, the consumer side also, their mindset corrupted. Because they create a corrupted mind that is danger than just pay some additional $2 in case, like $2 give to some beggar. Because this mindset within your family create, even as a consumer, is trickle down to your children. Next generation children also think in that way. Those children go to work, they think this is the way, and they also ready for that. So this is the vicious cycle. This happen. Now, simple thing in the market, the vicious cycle create this price ceiling, but price ceiling itself again as a policy tool we can't reject because the price ceiling used as a policy tool to address the market failure. If that case is the price ceiling in the government, that may not happen this one, because the policymakers in that case to see the create in the black market price, and they introduce uh, they address this issue another kind of a strategy and do continuous policy changes. But our side, the world what we live in, especially Sri Lanka, is not happening with the policymakers just introduce the price ceiling and they sleep and happily they think that happened. That our policymakers mind. So that is the story, and don't think that line. Even I advise you, you maybe say that is correct when you really go to your department, your ministry, your place, working place. Alone, you can't influence so much. You can't do that. But that is reality. You must understand. Now, but what we see now in case of this price ceiling, in terms of producer surplus and consumer surplus, what will happen to the economy? That's what the textbook analysis. Now, original consumer surplus before introduced price ceiling, the area A, B, and C area. So if we use our calculation here, 15 here, 8, 7 is different, 7 here, 100, 700, 150 in the original consumer surplus. $350 million without price ceiling. Otherwise, you can say A, B, C area. And the original producer surplus, the hypothetical figures I put, maybe later on we confuse those value. But in the exam, I give a demand function. I with the tutorial, you can see demand function, the supply function, and about price ceiling I give you. Then you have to find using those calculation based on those. Do those tutorial you will learn. And producer surplus originally here, let's say here also 3 and the 500, $250 million, the original producer surplus. In terms of social welfare, become original without price ceiling, $600 million. That is the D, E, and F area, all producer surplus. Now with the price ceiling, what happened right now, since the price goes down up to 7, consumer surplus enlarge or increase is also depend on the elasticity. Area ABD, they lost C, but ABD area become now consumer surplus. If our calculation, but this calculation sometimes mislead because I put hypothetical value. So after price ceiling, I use the CS consumer surplus 1. Value you can calculate here 10, 3, 70. 21,100,000 plus 5. Uh, 100. Now social consumer surplus become 385 million compared to the previous case. Before price ceiling, consumers better off. Previously 350, now 385. And the producer surplus only become this area, E area. So here 7 to 3 is 4 times 140 million dollar. now produce a surplus. The previously 250, now 140, the 110 directly they lost. This 110 part of that D area, 70 went to the consumer, but the F area between after 70 gone 40. From producer 40 lost to the entire society. It's now neither with producer nor consumer. So similar thing in the C area from consumer also lost to the society. It's neither goes to producer nor consumer. So this C and F area become dead weight loss. C and F area become dead weight loss. It's if you have used our calculation roughly. This can calculate this area almost about $80 million become dead weight lost. That is the textbook calculation due to price ceiling, loss to the economy, loss to the society. Loss to the economy, loss to the society. That dead weight loss. But like I explained, the worst situation is more than that because this price ceiling calculation, dead weight loss calculation come with the full employment assumption. But we discussed previously in detail that not realistic. Even the full employment realistic in terms of changing one industry, other industry, laborers, entrepreneurs, others, it take time. It may be 100% not possible also. Take time because the has to develop skill. Now we have to think of whether first thing economy is full employment. Second thing, whether those laborers can shift to other industry quickly. Then we have to think whether we have any package to train them that come under social protection. We think we have whether to look after them until they find a job or start now industry. Under social protection, they have any package to look after their families. So the value lost or income lost, those income earners or input providers, laborers, and entrepreneurs. It's not easily directly and this linked to the other because all the industries are linked with the other industries. For example, bank. And the bank maybe branches has to close also. Maybe their employment also lost their job because of this. So that also we have to count and indirectly, but directly count this value, let's say about $150 million. Suppose this 100 in the exam you must calculate given this demand and supply function. Let's say this is $150 million, but this entire economy loss is more than that because these input providers they link to some other because each industry link usually. Now, to one example I took for the bank. Since the producers in this area, they now stop taking the loan from bank and the bank also lost profit and revenue and they remove their employee and it really happened. So that interlink. Other industries also like. Assuming that that also coming together, let's say another 100 million, 250 million economic or earning the entire economy because this is the revenue go to as a GDP. If before price ceiling, if you calculate the production possibility frontier and GDP here, before price ceiling, now again same thing like this 250 million value GDP drop, which means the production possibility frontier shift backward. Now this happened, let's say 2026, that we compare to 2025 GDP, though central bank claim that the government claim that we are better off, it never happened because now we are in the production possibility frontier here. Now, in the terms of money value, this happened because we are getting IMF money and in some way, but that is the reality. That's the reality. Now we see this consequences. It's not simple like debt weight loss, and not simple like policymakers think they try to support to, let's say, SMEs and low income those producers. Simply they think. So when we introduce policies, let's say really they have to introduce this kind of price release in terms of market failure and
Guys, sir dropped out again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
uh, sorry again. My connection lost, and so much so sorry. That's the thing. What happened? I hope you can hear me right now, right?
Yes, sir.
We can.
So sorry. And I'll go back. Yes, sir. We were discussing here the price ceiling effect. And calculated way, only the textbook way, but the analysis in the exam, I need more than that, but I discussed already. Think of that area. Okay, I will continue.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So just like, to get your insight, because you've been encouraging us to sort of like think in a new way and just to sort of uh, help how we frame and think about question paper answers. So in 2022 and even recently, we saw because of the fuel shortage, recently it was obviously because of an exogenous shock, we saw this quota system being introduced, right? So then, could there have been more sort of economically efficient ways to have gone about addressing that shortage, or was it like, a necessary framework at the time?
I think that's a very good question. In the short term, that is a very good option right now we have, and they introduce this court system. So the otherwise very difficult to handle, and the corruption improve. That is still this also corruptions happen. That thing can happen, but there is a very good initiative. So I'm not saying that is a bad thing. That's a good thing. Otherwise, no option and the queues and things and the cost to the economy, because previously, remember to 2022, even I were in queue 2 days. For example, someone, let's say the doctor in the queue 2 days, and the cost to the society, cost to the economy too much than this quota. So that's, I think, thing. And also intervention required, focused intervention also with the quota system. For example, some sectors really have to, now this time also we can see the public transport and everything give the facilities. So that's, I think, that is the short term. That's what I see. But the long term, we can't move such a way. We need as a country strategies to address this, because this policy shock and external shock, especially the energy sector, continuously happen. Future must be worse. Now we just introduce this kind of court system, and it continuously not a good policy. Keeping that one, we have to think of kind of alternative energy within the country and the innovative way introduced. For that, not only the energy, we have to think of the other product also kind of suitable to energy savings and suitable to alternative energy. That kind of medium and long-term innovation we don't have. Now, if you remember, if you are not remember, in very way, you are not born also, 1972 is the highest energy shock, oil shock came in the OPEC region. This shock is the, now other countries, they introduce this kind of solar, this kind of electricity vehicle system. So it's a long term. But in our economy, our policymakers just give this kind of a short term and temporary solution. They don't have this kind of alternative and the long term vision and solution. For instance, an energy case, and the government now almost stopped solar power, and others are saying some other reason. But that is not the solution. And the government should be able to think next 10 years to bring the economy, if completely stop this imported oil, what to do? It may happen after. So that kind of long-term, medium-term strategies and policies required with short term. So again, your answer in the short term, that may be the, in terms of available good option, introduce this quota. And there might be in other ways, but this is the best way to handle it, and it work properly. I don't know, you got my point, and that's what my the answer.
Yes, you are clear. Understood.
Because you look at our policymakers and government is still not, now, for example, right now we are going to do a working paper also. It's a world prediction is sooner coming the very heavy weather situation. In country like Sri Lanka, like weather, very dry weathers, and other countries flood, and this become worse. But still our policymakers even blind that what to do and no any other plan. So in
Yes.
that
I
long
think
term, we
especially
need. Now, for example, with this happened, my idea, even this motor bicycle and the three-wheelers in Sri Lankan situation, we have to think, develop our innovative ways to, without this imported energy situation, and introduce the system, run there, rather than just cry for the oil price increase and shock. That exactly happening. That may not happen because our politicians also, they have short-term gain, and they are not thinking the long-term gain, because in that way they definitely know that their vote base will reduce in that way, because they introduce the innovative thing is cost to the economy initially stage. we will discuss in the production theory those things also. That's what I feel. I think that's a good question. And we better have a discussion like this and the master level and think of kind of a shift the mind change and attitudes and practices also, not only knowledge. Now, with this, I will another maybe 10-15 minute continue with the next type of intervention that what we call tax. I think better you read two article I shared with you 2 weeks ago, and also the article we have written you can get from our department journal, and also we have published a book also. See this tax how to the economy, though the government happily always try to see that the government get high tax and now increase the tax revenues. That entirely cost so much cost to the economy. Not only Sri Lankan system and all the other countries, same thing. Like I said, except Nigeria, in case of direct tax increase, Nigeria does not negative effect to the economy. So in the other countries also same that. With that. Now, in terms of taxation, it's a compulsory kind of payment. Industries, household, and all the others, individual has to pay compulsory. And here the two different version. One is the direct and income tax. The other one is indirect and tax on commodities. In this lecture, we take the second one, indirect and tax on commodities. And the first one, direct tax, of course, the straightforward. For instance, if a government impose direct tax, it's directly affect to the demand curve, and demand curve shift because your purchasing power reduced, and that apparent to in case of supply is constant, supply reduce the economic constant. Originally, let's say, produce 100 million GDP, now drop into 80 million GDP. So then how government say that the economy grow with this kind of policies? And there's another thing what we discussed before, so tax relationship between the tax income and the tax rate is coming to the, the Laffer curve effect. And up to some extent, the optimal level, after that the government increase tax, government tax revenue goes down. Now, for example, you can see later on also, I will discuss, if the tax rate includes the direct tax also, commodity, the same thing happen, the Laffer curve effect happen, direct tax also. In Sri Lankan case, our calculation, if you read our books and article, you can see we are now beyond this optimal level. We are right somewhere here in that case. So that is also the matter we have to look at. Now, here, just to introduction, we look at this indirect tax and tax on commodities. They are also government imposed tax as a percentage rate or unit tax. Percentage also in the cell and unit tax. For example, per unit $2 tax. Here, the way mainly discussed in this part, the rate one also, the different rate one in the shift demand and supply curve, different proportion. But here the shift parallel, we will discuss only this part. So that's the introduction, and we will see what happened with the tax. And also in the exam paper, you have to carefully look at whether tax, for example, if I say in the introduce $2 tax on, you have to check whether the seller or on buy. So analysis different, but the conclusion same. On seller, supply curve shift. On buyer, the demand curve shift. That's how we do the analysis, but the outcome, ultimate outcome is the same, no change in outcome. So that we have to understand. Now here, we look at both analysis and again, in the first we look at the social net gain or loss due to tax in terms of neoclassical economic concept, which is using the producer surplus and the consumer surplus. But I extend my discussion beyond that without breaking the full employment assumption. What happened to the society, what happened to the economy also I will discuss. Because this full employment assumption is not valid, even the valid some certain issues there. First, we look at what happened in case of government import tax on sale. With that, it is supply curve with the original supply curve here. Originally, for instance, you can see the supply and demand, and the equilibrium settle E0. And the price P0, let's say $8. And the quantity equilibrium, let's say 100. And from the beginning, I want to mention you that in the exam, I give a demand and supply functions, and with that, you should be able to calculate the values, all the values, what we discuss here, including equilibrium, revenue, consumer surplus, debt weight loss, all the other values. To practice those things, I share with you the tutorial, some questions there. Or maybe today also I give some question. Now, with that happen, for instance, if the government introduce in this equilibrium price, let's say per unit $2, supply curve shift left hand side is the difference of $2 everywhere. The difference here $2. For instance, here $8 mean now with the same the productions go to market. Now unit price become in that way 8 plus 10, $10. It not happen because with the tax what happened with the new supply, new equilibrium, market equilibrium set here with high price E1 point new equilibrium, which means new equilibrium mean the new production also drop, let's say up to 60,000. Now you can see with that figure, we can do the analysis, put hypothetical value here, let's say 9, got the $2 tax. Here must be 7, but you can see in the scaling that completely wrong. That's why you have to use the given demand function and the given supply function. So with this you calculate everything. This equilibrium. Now here, original consumer surplus without tax, area A, B, C. That is the original consumer surplus. I'm not going to write here, area A, B, and C. So the hypothetical value calculation here, suppose here 10, here 8, then 2, here 100, and the 200 is $100 million. Original producer surplus C, D, E, and F area, which means our calculation, the hypothetical value, if we use the producer surplus original, here let's see. $3. Then here difference is 500, 250. Dollar is the producer plus original. which means the original social welfare, $350 value. Now, if you use the macro equation, community indifference curve lies somewhere here, value $250. Social welfare value. Okay. And original production also, let's say this is one industry in the economy, time 8 multiply because $100 million original production without trade, and this is the situation, the economy, GDP $100 million. This is revenue and come to. Now look at the after introduce the tax into the production drop into 60. Now look at what happened to consumer surplus. What happened to the consumer surplus right now? Consumer surplus now after taxing only area A, which is the value we can calculate, but later on maybe we mislead the value. Here 1, here 6, and the $30 million. Now look at here in terms of consumers. Now with the tax, what happened? 7 million amount of welfare dropped from consumer side. Consumer side. Now only $30 million, originally 100. Producer surplus now, because though consumers pay $9, the producers supplier, they receive only $7 because the $2 goes to bank, and the producer surplus become area only, which means the hypothetical figure, if I use here, one here, four times 2 times, $120 million producer surplus. Now originally producer surplus 250, which means 130 they lost from their surplus. Now, the good part of this action compared to price ceiling and price floor, the government receives some money. In this case, the government $2 tax, and this area becomes the government revenue. 2 multiply 6, the government revenue become 120. Now the problem here, even the government assume that whatever, not assume, corruption, whatever things also happen, but in case of government getting this money, like I argued before, compared to using by the private sector inefficiency, it has some negative effect. Assuming that it go to the government and public again, the policy makers or whatever, total social welfare in that way, adding the government also come 200, 250, $270. This adding the government revenue also. Otherwise, if you take only the social consumer and producer surplus only, then only 150. Now 270 compared to the original welfare right now. You can see simply you can argue original before tax situation better than the after tax situation, because they are only 270 lakh different here, 30 and 50, $80 become dead weight loss. That is the C and F area. Dead weight loss become C and F area. In our calculation, there's different here. $80 million. Now look at the original situation, social welfare indifference curve, community indifference curve, 350 now, including the government tax revenue, and definitely drop here. welfare level up to 270. Now, in terms of production, reduced now $40 million. Another thing also, if the 40 million, not only 40 million, it's government getting this money, government inefficiency adding the, although the production possibility frontier has to shift this way, second level, the production possibility frontier shift further inside at the third level, since the government inefficiency also there, because if you in the private sector handles 270, they are efficient compared to the public sector anywhere in the world. So that also now different here, look at here in the analysis now producing this point A, the welfare, even the negative effect on welfare right now B, now maintain this welfare differences, the government has to get money. Use this 270 for that purpose is not enough. Sometimes they have to increase the tax again, and taxpayers has to pay more than 270. In that way, you can see how society works off this kind of policies. If you look at the general equilibrium analysis also. Now, again come back to this, producer plus, consumer plus, and debt weight loss. This is the amount of debt weight lost. This is the CNF area. Now look at here. This is the buyer. Buyer means the consumers lost. This orange color area completely lost due to tax. This green color area, you can see the producer side and the producer surplus, they lost. So that two area. Now these two area, the though burden to consumer, burden to producer, only part goes to the government. That's the government revenue. That is the, this blue color area become debt weight. Blue color area become debt weight loss. That is the point, that is the thing what you have to carefully think of. Now, little bit expand this neoclassical assumption, because that's the full employment. Now look at the originally produced 100, now produce only 600 million due to this tax, which means, you know, under the supply curve, this area lost those income earners, income, including entrepreneurs, because they have to close some of their businesses, employees, human resources and labors, and other input providers, and the banks who provide loans to those entrepreneurs, and all those lost their job and lost their income source. If we assume that household size is 4, if this amount, say altogether lost 4, become 200 million or 200,000 people suffer with that. This serious issue. Serious issue. Why? Because it creates a social unrest. Because they don't have any option, they don't have any income source. Some businesses close down, some banks, maybe they close their branches, or maybe they remove their employees, or some other input providers, they shut down their businesses, they remove their employees. It's that way, the gravity is more than 200, because this particular industry linked to the other industries. If you all take together, if the original production possibility frontier in the general equilibrium level like here, with this, if this particular industry like the Y, other industries here, production possibility frontier move or shift to inside like this. because of this tax policy. You can see. Now, unfortunately, our social protection policy is silent for these people. You may have your own experience or your friend, your relative experience, this kind of thing. But so our social protection policies does not look after this. Sometime back, we give the social protection strategy to the government and the World Bank. That in 2023 happened. We gave some policy package and the product for this also addressed to those things, which include those who lost their job, so some kind of social protection or welfare benefit, and they get social protection policy need to address the skill development. So the skill development council setting we gave them, and with that they train the people and to fix the other industries also. And the social protection policy needs some strategies to create some opportunities outside also. So we have published a book and article also you can read, and even the government did not usefully. Recently, the government social protection, I think 2-3 years ago, some of them they used, and that is the thing. And have to link this to social protection policy when the government is this kind of tax. Unfortunate situation is the government introduced this kind of tax all the sectors, all the sectors. So in that way, definitely, not only one sector, this happened, production possibility frontier continuously shift inward. You see, in that case, kind of an instrument, you may feel that we have to completely ignore, we have to get rid of. But that is not true. That's your point I need. Then why we need the instrument like this tax policy? Basically, simple answer is we have to address the market failure. So how this happen? So that's thing you have to think of before the exam, and how we use the tax policies. Unfortunately, our experience, our seen, whatever our stand experience, government always use tax as the just to generate government earn. That is the completely wrong in terms, fundamentally wrong. Using only in generate income. That is the problem what we have. Now again, simply you can understand using this chart, what we discuss right now, again to explanation tax policy. At this point, I'll stop. Next week, I'll take this chart and explain again. And what I want to say, again, the burden of the tax, consumers and producers depend on the elasticity of the demand and supply. Now here, in this case, you can see the blue area, consumers pay, and the as a government revenue, supply pay. Complete burden, of course, including this also. For both of that. This proportion depends on the elasticity of demand. For instance, if you can see here happen, now you can see the burden, the supply very little compared to consume. So that depends on the elasticity. Now, this curve you can see here, inelastic situation demand, which means kind of a compulsory good, and the higher percent go to consumer, very little producer. And last point also, maybe the next week also I'll come back here. Now look at the government increase the tax rate. Let's say simple diagram, supply and the demand. This one tax revenue zero anyway. If we can draw the diagram in the here start zero, here also start zero. When you introduce SAC here somewhere, the government revenue becomes somewhere here increase. It's coming like that up to come to the maximum point and reduce. There's a point government has to introduce the optimal level of taxing. They are the come to the maximum point. If the government, for example, in this point, tax revenue is this area. Now government import tax into this maximum point, tax revenue become this area. Now, let's say the government imports tax somewhere here, tax rate very high. You can see the tax revenue become this area. This is the value, government tax revenue. Let's see that also we will look at next week, and the Lafayette curve effect also happen. And I did not discuss with you tax on buyer. In that case, the demand curve shift, the new equilibrium and original equilibrium setting like that. They are also, you can see the create the dead weight loss. The same analysis you can do. So this is the dead weight loss. This is the lost production. And next week I'll take the demand function and the supply function. How after demand shift, after supply shift, this demand and supply function change. So I will show you next week. With that, I will continue because we have to find the after tax supply or demand function, then the equilibrium point. That's adjustment we have to do. Next week, I will continue from that point. I'll stop this point. If you have any questions, you can ask me, or maybe if you have any input, you can discuss. So otherwise, we can leave the meeting. Okay. It look like no questions, no input, and we'll stop this point. So I will continue next week on this point. Tax, then subsidies, then most probably next week I finish this discussion.